Good morning, everyone. I am so happy to be here to speak to you a little about my journey into fitness. But before I speak, I always like to let everyone know that I truly, truly love the Lord. I cannot do anything without him in my life. Well, the story starts. There were two sisters who loved each other dearly. If you saw one, you saw the other. Now, one was a good sister, and the other was a bad sister. Can any of you think who the bad sister could have been? Well, my sister's name was Velvet, and we were invited to a church picnic, and we were told we could wear bathing suits. We went to purchase these bathing suits, and gosh, we put them on, and Velvet said, "No, Ernie, take it off. We've got to get our bodies in shape." I said, "Well, I don't see anything wrong with my body." She says, "No, we can't do this." So we took the suits off, and we didn't wear any bathing suits to this picnic. We just sat around and talked. But there were some ladies there who mentioned that they were exercising at Cobbin College at that time. So within a matter of a few weeks, we decided to go to Cobbin. And there were about 3 instructors there, and they told us that they could help us to get our bodies into shape. Well, of course, I said to them, "I want to keep my hips. I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose that." So the instructor stated that we don't do spot reducing around here. Either you're going to do what I teach you, or I can't help you at all. So Velvet said, "Just be quiet and come on in and work out." Well, I went in, and Velvet was working out. Her body was changing. She was looking good. But girlfriend here didn't want to do anything. I sat there and did absolutely nothing. But when I found out that Velvet was getting on television, in the newspapers, and girlfriend here wasn't getting anything, I had the audacity to leave the gym that I was angry because no one was paying any attention to me. I walked home from the gym. I had never walked that far in my life. I walked home from the gym, and I said, "I'm never coming back to that gym." But Velvet, being the type of person that she was, came to the house, hugged me, and said, "If you want this joy, you will have to start doing what I'm doing." Well, I decided to do that. And then things changed for me. But to bump the story up a little bit more, after we had gotten fit, Velvet said, "What we want to do is to inspire and motivate all seniors to live a healthy, happy, positive, confident lifestyle by number 1, prayer, number 2, eating healthy, number 3, getting out doing some type of cardio, and then the last thing, to start lifting some weights to tone the body." So that's what we did. We had a large following. But little did I know that Velvet had a health problem. She came to me and she said, "If anything were to happen to me, do you think you could continue with what we started?" And I thought she was just kidding. I said, "Well, vice versa. If anything happens to me, could you do it?" She says, "I'm not kidding. Would you do that?" So to keep her quiet, I said yes. So each time she came to me with various symptoms, the first one was, she said, you know, I got up. My head hurt me so badly. I don't know why it hurts. And I thought it was simply due to the fact that she wore her hair like I wore mine and that she had it tied back too tight. I said, maybe if you opened it, you would feel better. The next time she came to me, she stated that she couldn't see out of one eye. The next thing she said, it felt like water was running in her ears. The next time, each time she came with different things. She couldn't use her hands. Then the last thing, she got up and didn't know who she was. So I said, this is enough. We're going to the hospital. Well, I didn't get there in time to take her to the hospital. My parents took her. They took her in, and she sat there, and no one examined her immediately. By the time I got there, I said, we're leaving. We're going to another hospital. We went to another hospital, and they took her immediately. They examined her, and they said that she had a brain aneurysm and that it had already burst. That was the water that she thought that was running in her ears. That was blood. Well, the headaches, that was the aneurysm. Not being able to see out of one eye. All of those things were symptoms of this aneurysm. And by her exercising, that kept her on her feet longer than the average person. Well, Velvet said that she did not want to be on life support. So she didn't go on life support. And she died right then and there. When she died, I ran around the hospital and I said, gosh, I don't have anyone. What am I going to do? My baby sister, God bless her, she said, but you have me. That wasn't what I wanted. But she had, my old sister, had a memorial service, and she was cremated. And when she died, gosh, I went through depression. Aneurysms were on my mind, thinking I would have one. All of those things came into my mind. I went home. I was the meanest, ugliest person that you would ever want to meet. I was back and forth at the hospital because, as I said, I was suffering with anxiety. I was placed on a pill called lorazepam. That helped me out for a while. And boy, oh boy, after you start taking the lorazepam, I stayed on that for a certain length of time. I needed more because it didn't help. I was on Lexapro, Remeron, all of those medications to keep me together. But finally, one night, I went to bed, and I was awakened by my sister, and she said, you are not doing what I asked you to do. Get up and do what I asked you to do. I looked around, I didn't see her. But then within a matter of a few weeks, I decided that I would go to a church and that I would sit on the very, very back pew. Because I said, if those people got on my nerves, I could get up and run out of that church. Well, when I sat down and the service started, after a while, they started playing a beautiful hymn. And the words were, "Here I am, Lord. It is I, Lord. I have heard you calling through the night. I will go, Lord, where you lead me. I will hold your people in my heart." Never was I a person to get up and make noise in a church, because I thought that people who got up and made noises in church were just people who wanted to be seen. But don't you know, when that shoe hits the other person, it is so different. I immediately jumped up and disrupted that service. And I said, "Restore to me the joy of my salvation. Restore to me the joy of each new day. Give me back the love that I once had for you. And never, ever let me slip away." You would think that the minister of that church would have asked me to leave, but he did not. He came back to me. He embraced me. He said, "Is there anything that we can do for you?" And I stood there, and I was so overjoyed that he allowed me to disrupt his service. I was a person who always liked to sing at church, but I loved it, but believe me, it really meant nothing to me. But at my sister's memorial service, I sang the Lord's Prayer by Gates. That didn't mean anything to me. I just did it because I knew that was on the program. But after I said what I said in that church, I was a different person. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to follow her dream and help as many people as I could to get healthy. And that is what I do this very day. I've been doing this for approximately 27 years. Well, I'm almost finished.
She saw me creeping over.
Okay. I ended up in the Guinness Book of World Records. I ended up in Ripley's, believe it or not, as Granny's Six Packs. And when I went to Rome, I arrived in Rome on my sister's birthday, March the 16th. When I got off the plane, there was a car waiting for me, and the tag number on that car was 316. And when I arrived at the hotel, they were playing a particular song that she loved. "When you walk through a storm," you all know it, you never, ever walk alone. And that is what I do. I never walk alone. And I love you, love you, love you. I would like to leave you with a quote that's by Audrey Hepburn. For beautiful eyes always look for the good in others. For beautiful lips only speak words of kindness. For poise walk with the knowledge that you are never alone. I love you all, and God bless.
Truly an honor to be here. Let's give Ernestine another big round of applause. You know, I started the Baltimore Marathon, I think it was it's going on its 19th year, and she's been an integral part of that as well. And we truly do believe in exercise. I tell people you are what you eat, and exercising your body is probably one of the most important things you can do in order to keep healthy. But let me just say to all of you, I am really excited to be here. First of all, can I have the plaque right there? Let me present to the Maryland Public Television your Women's Leadership Certificate. Where is she? Oh. We're in our second year. Let's give them a big round of applause. Yeah, when I was reading, thank you, love, and I was thinking about when you started this, the whole concept was to really get women into a safe place to talk about leadership and how do you move towards leadership. And let me first begin by saying that all of us have that capacity and capability. It's making the choice to lead. But I always tell people a good leader also knows how to serve. And oftentimes women, specifically, don't choose other women. You know, we'll get in a position and we'll look around and we'll see a man and we'll choose him before we choose us. So my first advice to you is choose us. Choose us. And I'm saying that's when we're capable, when we're qualified, and we have the capacity to lead. Don't choose us just to choose us. Choose us because we have the qualities, the character, the capacity, and the capability to lead. Because oftentimes we will be overlooked. You know, and I can tell you, you can look at all of the studies will tell you women are the lowest on the totem pole. When you think about the number of women, and we're increasing politically in this nation, but when you think about women in politics, women in business, women who are leading organizations, companies, and corporations and sitting on boards of directors, our numbers are minuscule in comparison. So it is really up to us, and I tell folks, and I've always said this, when we get in the room, whether we're sitting on a board or we're part of a group or an organization, and you get the opportunity to nominate, select, or choose us. Because we look past us. We look past us. I am one of 9 women in the nation chosen by Essence Magazine, 9 African-American women mayors chosen by Essence Magazine in terms of leadership. And I can tell you, it's when the cameras go off that the conversations really take place. And here's what I want to share with you, some of what those women have said. In our darkest hour, you would think the people who would come to our aid would be women. And they don't. And what they said was, Essence Magazine, what we would like for you to do is to carry that message to women across this nation that while we are moving up in leadership, there are very few comrades standing beside us, supporting us and pushing us forward. I tell people if I lived my life by way of Facebook, I probably wouldn't get up in the morning, but thank God that I feel and I know that everything I've done to this point has prepared me for leadership. It has been my service. It has been my grassroots efforts, and it's always interesting because people talk about, well, you know, what do you know what the grassroots? I told them I was grassroots before you all even could probably spell that word. Owning a newspaper at a young age, you know, challenging companies and corporations to include us, never walking in the room and feeling comfortable that I am the only one in the room. Yeah, I've heard people brag about being the only one in the room. If you're the only one in the room, you should be questioning why you are the only one in the room. But we don't. We become comfortable, you know, and I say this. I tell people I didn't learn to play golf just because I wanted to play golf. I learned to play golf because I wanted to be on the playing field in those quiet conversations that are being had that we're not included in. So it doesn't mean that you have to wear a three-piece suit every day, because I don't do that, because there's nothing more important to me than looking like a female, because I love the way I look every day. So it doesn't require you to put on a three-piece suit, but it does require you to be able to have those conversations and to include us. And I want to share with you all, because when I became mayor of Baltimore, I consciously chose certain women in certain positions. Now, you're going to hear from Heidi Daniels, who I just think is outstanding, and people told her she had big shoes to fill, but guess what? She's walking in those shoes. She's developed her own shoes. So there'll be big shoes to fill if you ever have to follow a Heidi Daniels. Give her a big round of applause, head of our Enoch Pratt Library. Our incoming health commissioner, I just want to share with you some of the things that we've done. And people said, did you just choose them because they're women? No, I chose them because they were qualified. Our CEO of the school system, as you well know, was there when I got there, but she is also a woman. Our new health commissioner will be a woman, already selected, and we're getting great reviews. My deputy chief of staff and strategic alliance is a female. She's here with us. Our transportation director, head of transportation, one of the largest agencies in the city, is a female. Housing authority, I separated housing and community development from the housing authority because what I found out was that over the 40-year period that they've been put together, that federal dollars were being mingled with housing and community dollars. And so when you think about riding through Baltimore and you're seeing all of these boarded up houses, and believe me, we've got solutions for that. The reason that is because we commingled dollars and neighborhoods and communities went neglected. So I separated those agencies and brought in a woman from New York who is heading our housing authority of Baltimore, and she hit the ground running, came in immediately. We were competing to be one of 6 cities in the nation to get a Promised Neighborhood grant of $35 million. She walked in three months and we won. The labor commissioner of Baltimore City is a female. 5 years negotiating with the city police department over a contract that had police officers working 4 days on, 3 days off, settled the contract, they're back to 5 days and 2, and then they get 5 and 3, but that's a female. Director of Government Relations, helping us to fight for keeping the Preakness in Baltimore because it belongs to Baltimore, and we are not giving up. The Preakness belongs in Baltimore. A female, and her deputy. Director of the Mayor's Office of Criminal Justice, just named another female. Director of the Office of Sustainable Solutions, who deals with data and having agencies look at solutions that will make a difference as we move our city forward, a female. Director of the Environmental Control Board, a female, who will help us work on as we close down our plant that is emitting CO2 fumes in the air, creating asthma and all kind of issues. And people said, well, what are you going to do when you close down the plant? Well, we've been burning trash now for Baltimore County, Anne Arundel County, Howard County, parts of Montgomery County. Y'all figure it out. We'll figure out how to do ours. We'll become cleaner, greener, and the city of Baltimore will be healthier for it. Thank you. Director of Community Engagement, I think she's here. Allie Smith is here with us. A female. Director of Homeless Services, and let me just say this. When I first became mayor, one of the things I said was I can't do the work of the city by myself, and I need groups, organizations, individuals to come in and have those conversations. That's Allie Smith. And I'm telling you, it has made a difference. And those folks come twice a month to City Hall. Grassroots groups, organizations, to the point that a charity, a large philanthropic organization just came and sat, I think it was almost a year and a half ago, am I right, Allie? About a year and a half ago, and said, we've never seen anything like this before. Gave us $500,000 to help grow those organizations. Thank you, Allie Smith. Y'all can give her applause. The Director of Homeless Services, we separated it. We're separating it now from the Office of Human Services because homelessness, you know, I just got sick and tired of hearing people say we're going to end homelessness. When? When? So we hired a young woman out of Washington, D.C., who is running our homeless services because I intend to build homes for the homeless because you cannot deal with people's problems if they're laying in the street. If they're standing on the corner, you can't solve their problem. You all remember Maslow's theory, hierarchy of needs? What's the first thing? Shelter. And we're not talking about shelters, we're talking about homes. You got to have a roof over your head. So we're separating that out. And then we have, because we believe that our children need a clear focus, we have an education officer. We brought back one of the smartest women I know in education, Tisha Edwards, to come back to the city and work on our education issues, and so we're excited about that. We made Baltimore City Community College free. Free. And because we made it free, Coppin State University said if you finish your AA degree there, you can get your BS degree there for free. Johns Hopkins University has a $1.9 billion scholarship program for children, young people who can earn a 4.0. You can go to Johns Hopkins University for free. And look, don't think we don't have them in Baltimore because I was sitting beside an eighth grader. And I asked her, I said, what are your plans? And she said, the name was so long, I knew it was something to do with medical or scientists or something. And so I said, wow, that's great. I said, you can go to Baltimore City Community College for free and University of Maryland. She said, well, I'm going to Johns Hopkins. I said, oh. I said, okay. I said, but you got to earn a 4.0. And she looked at me, she said, well, that's easy. So don't think we don't have them because they're there. And so we're really excited about that. And then we have the Director of External Affairs, who looks at all issues from around the country and locally. Director of Public Affairs, another female. Director of Constituent Services, a female. Director of our administration, a female. A director of our convention center is a female. Director of Immigrant Affairs is a female. Director of the Baltimore Office of Promotion and Arts is a female. And the Director of Live Baltimore is a female. And the Director of our public television station is also a female. Those are among the women who are leading in our city. So my message to you all, it's in you. It's in you. So you can lead when you choose to lead. But set goals, and I tell this to all of my students when I used to teach at Morgan State University, set goals. And it doesn't mean they're locked in stone, because you might get to a point and say, you know what, this is not something I really like. Guess what? You get to change those goals. And never be afraid to fail. I tell people failure is success turned upside down. You're supposed to learn a lesson from everything that you encounter and everything you do. Thank you. So I hope that when you spend time at this conference that you get to share with each other your ideas, your goals, your aspirations, your fears, and your desires. You can achieve whatever it is you want to achieve. My dad used to say to me, you can be anything you want to be. All you got to do is work hard for it. Thank you, Father. And I had great parents all of my life who chose to provide for their children what they thought they needed to have. And back in our day, the World Book Encyclopedia was all about that. I asked my parents, I say, who is Andrew Young? They said, go get the World Book Encyclopedia. Where's the Atlantic Ocean? Go get A. The Indian Ocean, go get I. And I said, I used to sit down at the age of 3 and say, whew, these are the smartest people in the world, because I thought that everything that I was reading, they already knew. So they were smart, and they were smart, because they were smart enough to provide us with the tools of learning. So I learned to read by the time I was 3. So I'm excited, you all. I'm excited about the opportunity to lead my city. I'm also excited about the opportunity to serve my city. And so I thank all of you all for being here. Please take away from here something that you can take with you as you continue to aspire to leadership or to lead. God bless you, and thank you.
Hit the button here. Hello, hello, party over here. Okay. 1, 2, 3, mic check. So we want to make this as conversational as possible, right? We want to act like we're all kind of kikiing it up, drinking some wine. Okay, no alcoholic beverages, so let's not go there. But nonetheless, we really want to keep it very informal, and we will have questions at the end for Ms. Daniel. I think the first thing we want to talk about, we have to give a little plug to the library. So I want to ask you just a few questions about that, because you've been at the helm now for about a year. You know, let me get close. How about, let's get a little close. I'm going to sit down. I'm like talking at you, like, well, I don't know what that is. I didn't want to sit down because, honestly, these Spanx are not the most conducive.
So I'm sucking in.
Are you sucking in too?
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
I am so glad we're in a room full of women. Oh my
Yeah.
God, because that is not a conversation. This is the women's forum, right? That's real.
Well, you always think about it. Like when I know I'm going to be sitting on a stage, I'm like, is this, like, can I sit comfortably in this?
Totally. Like, so like tricks, you know, some of these tricks. Jackets are very good at flattering. You know, if you're face on, it needs to be face on and then sideways. But, you know, anyway, let's I totally get that. All right, so let's first talk about some accolades.
Sure.
Reader's Digest listed Enoch Pratt Free Library as one of the top 10 nicest places in America. Isn't that fabulous?
It's amazing.
Right? Congratulations. Congratulations.
Yeah.
So why do you think your organization was chosen?
Well, it was chosen because of the incredible work our staff does every day, how they interact with the community, the services we provide. You know, people, as CEO of the library, people often say to me, I would love your job because I love to read. And that's always funny to me, too, because I'm like, well, I have, you know, like a $43 million budget, 500 employees and 22 buildings, and 2 kids at home, so not a lot of time for reading, actually. But we don't just provide great books, although books are important and it's still a core service. We are in our communities every day providing services from connecting people with lawyers to expunge their records, social workers to help them move through systems, whether it be issues around housing or you know, drug abuse or usage, and or just needing to connect with a certain service to sort of improve your life. We're also there helping people with resumes, small businesses, marketing small businesses, writing business plans. We're there for moms with children, dad with children. So there's a whole variety of resources we're providing for our communities based on what our community is asking us to provide. So I think that's one of the reasons we're the nicest places in America. I mean, does it get nicer than that? You know,
I know. How many people have been down to the library downtown in any of the libraries? Okay,
fantastic.
Yes. Put your hand up. That's wonderful. That's great. You know,
so come back after this week because we're closed, but it's going to look a lot different when you walk in next week.
Yes, that's right. Well, that's a good segue into the renovations that are going on. You had the choice to kind of close the library down. I mean, now it is, but for the greater part of it, but you kind of kept it open until now because you really got to get to the nitty-gritty. But how How long is this going to be? How much
Yeah.
money? And what are some of the differences we'll see?
So it's a 3-year renovation. The choice to keep it open was made by the previous CEO.
Okay.
And I think it was a fabulous choice, one I would have made, because we have almost 500,000 visitors a year coming through the door. Wow. So it's really doesn't make sense to us to close that down for 3 full years. So we kept it open and did a staged renovation, which has been difficult. It's been difficult for our staff. It's been difficult for our customers. It's difficult for the general contractor, doing asbestos remediation in an open building. But we've managed to do it. When you come back in, you're going to see that we are restoring all of the historical elements of the building. So there is the marble, the ceilings. When you walk in, really just prepare yourself to be like that the entire time, because the ceilings are incredible, and I just want to stare at them all day. They're amazing, and I think our customers, our community will too. But we're also going to have an audio, video recording and editing studio for teens. Our teen center is 3 times the size that it was before.
Yes,
which is really
that's
exciting.
Wonderful.
So we really want to connect to the students in the area and have them come in, and we'll have 2 classrooms for them. The children's area is fully renovated. I know we have a goldfish pond, and people really love that. We rehomed the goldfish that were there, okay. So they're perfectly safe. People ask me always, what happened to the goldfish that were in there? It's they're okay. We rehomed them. We check on them regularly. They're doing well. We have new goldfish that'll come in. And we've replumbed the pond, and that whole space looks different. There's a couple of classrooms in there as well. There'll be some interactive elements for children to really, not just sit quietly at a table, but also be children and things that are developmentally appropriate for them. The terrazzo floor is coming back, being patched, worked right now. It's going to be amazing and beautiful. And we have our business science technology wing, which has 2 new career labs, and the humanities wing too, which will have some great reading room. So we have everything happening there, from meaningful career services to story time.
So you've got a lot going on there, I see. Oh, my goodness.
And we have 21 other neighborhood libraries as well, which are all awesome.
Oh,
so,
right, those little places
right.
that you have to be in charge of, too. I understand. So you've been at the helm for about almost 2 years now,
July,
right?
it'll be 2 years.
What are some of the other changes you made? Because I know the last time you and I talked, you were getting rid of those book fees and all that other good stuff.
Exactly.
And good reasons and valid reasons behind that.
Yeah, so in the last couple of years, one of the things we've done was expanded our hours by 30%, which has been fantastic. Thank you to the state and the city for the funding that made that possible. And we evened out hours, so every neighborhood library opens at 10 a.m. Hours are pretty consistent across buildings, except for Pennsylvania Avenue and Southeast Anchor. We gave them 4 evenings. We put more dollars into expanding hours there because we wanted anchors on the west side of the city and the east side of the city. And our central library is open until 7. So we expanded hours. We eliminated fines and fees. We really looked hard at, not fees. We still have some fees. We eliminated fines. We really looked hard at the data, and what we found was that there's always been this idea in libraries that you bring your books back or your DVDs back because we're charging you a fine and you're afraid of that 10 cents. And so you bring it back as a result. But that's actually absolutely not true. There was no incentive and no research proving that there was an incentive for people to bring their materials back because we were charging them a late fee. In fact, what research found was that it was actually a detriment. People don't want to come back once they accrue too much of a fine, either because they have real financial barriers that block them from coming back in, or they're afraid of accumulating those fines. So we heard research where parents said, I don't let my children go to the library and check out books because it's just another bill I might have to pay if they forget to return them on time. And that's the exact opposite of what we want to do, right? So we're looking at how that connects to our mission and saying this doesn't really connect to our mission. When we looked at our own internal data, we saw that the highest number of blocked cards were in neighborhoods where we wanted to be providing service the most. So it was just another penalty on poor people, which is not what we wanted to do at all. So we looked at it and we said this doesn't make sense for us. The financial loss was not great because people weren't paying their fees anyway, and they weren't returning the books, so we were losing materials. And we were only, out of our $43 million budget, collecting about $100,000 a year in fines. So that was nothing. It was less than 1/4% of our budget. So we went to the mayor, who, you know, has vision for the city, and said, does this make sense? And she agreed that no. So we eliminated fines. It went fine-free. So we were the first major library system in the East Coast to that.
That's pretty incredible.
And now libraries across the country are going fine-free for the same reasons, and it's really great to see. So,
Yeah, but
yeah.
we were the first in Baltimore,
Yeah.
so
Yeah. No.
too bad, so sad on them. All right, so we've been talking about the library, and of course, if you have any more questions about the library, please, Heidi will be here
Right.
Throughout most of the conference, at least the morning, to ask her some questions. So feel free to approach her and ask her that. But I want to switch over to goals and goal setting, because it's one of the main reasons why a lot of you are here today. So how does a young girl from Michigan, right, end up being the president and CEO of one of America's greatest library systems? I mean, was this something that you envisioned from when you were very young and made it a goal,
Yeah.
or did it kind of come around serendipitously for you?
I'm going to go with serendipitous. I mean, I still sometimes wake up and go, how did a girl from Michigan end up being the CEO? You know, how did
Right, that was my question.
How did the daughter of a factory worker and a housekeeper end up, you know,
Correct.
doing this? But it is truly, so it was serendipitous, but it's also not in many ways, right? Because I think that our life sometimes seems like we're creating these goals and we're focusing on a vision, and then sometimes you go in a completely different way than you expected to, and that's okay. So I always knew I wanted to help people. I feel like I was really blessed and really privileged. My parents, although we didn't have a lot of money nor a lot of education, I'm adopted, and my parents felt very strongly, my adopted parents, that I should have these opportunities. And they really didn't know how to go about giving me those opportunities, but they took me to a public library. And I sort of lost that connection with the public library for a number of years. And I went to college because I was able to educate myself through reading whatever I could find at the library. It was amazing to be able to go in and, like, it was never no, it was never like, we can't afford that today. It was always like, yeah, you want that? 50 books? Great. You know, read them all this weekend. It's fantastic. You can do that. So it was, for me, this definite place of, like, possibility. And there was no reason that I couldn't have the things in the library, and, like, knowledge. So, and it gave me this great window to worlds that I would never see otherwise. So, but I lost that connection through college, and I was a women's studies major, and I graduated, and I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do with my degree. Like, and I thought maybe I wanted to be a lobbyist, and then I discovered that I'm terrible at politics. And so I was like, I just didn't know what I wanted to do, and I just ended up working at this library system in outreach services and doing programs for children. And I got to do programs in great places like juvenile justice centers, where these kids were amazing to connect with, and bring in books that, like, really, like, we worked really hard on finding books that reflected their lives or their interests. And so I thought, wow, this is great work. This isn't really about saying, you know, shh, like, you know, quiet, you're in the library. You know, and I sort of had this idea of, you know, someone in a bun, you know, like your stereotypical library. When I started working in libraries, I was like, oh, that's not happening at all. And because I was kind of loud, and I like to laugh, and, you know, and I was like, so I don't know if I'm going to fit in, but it actually worked out great and fit in. So then I discovered I always knew I wanted to help people, and it just so happens that libraries are the path that I was called to help people. And so then I had a career and could start setting real career goals. But I think for me, it started with asking myself, why am I here? What is it that I am meant to do? And I knew I was meant to help people, and then the library path came once I knew that that's what it was. So I think with all goals, the first thing you have to ask yourself is, why am I doing this? What does it mean to me? Because if you aren't connected to that sense of purpose, your goals just fall away, right? So if we say, I'm going to, even little goals, like I want to read, people often set the goal of, like, I want to read more. But if you don't have a real purpose to why you want to read more, do you want to read more because you want to, you know, become compassionate through reading fiction? Do you want to read more leadership books? And you know, you have to have that connection to a purpose, or else it's just something that you say you want to do and you rarely follow up on it, right? Those are the goals that we set it New Year's and then never go back to. So you have to have that sense of purpose with even the smallest goal, or else it doesn't mean anything.
So with that why, as part of your purpose,
Yeah.
how do you propel yourself? How do you get from point A to point B? How do you go from Michigan to Ohio to the Houston, the various places, Oklahoma
Right.
City, and get to this Baltimore bigger library system? How do you, the mechanics of it?
Right. So some of it's just luck, right, or chance. You know, you might be just, oh, Houston seems like a cool city. I want to live there. You apply for a job, you get a job. But for me, it was about looking at, so Houston Public Library, for example, I started my library career in Oklahoma City. I ended up getting my master's in libraries in Denton, Texas, and I did that while working and commuting and living in Oklahoma City, some online classes and some physical classes. And I was a graduate assistant, so while doing that, I started looking around at other people in my industry that I could look up to and that I could admire. And there had been some great programming and some great work in Houston, at Houston Public Library. So I thought, I want to work there. I applied for a job. The first job I applied for, I didn't get. Then they called me back and said, hey, we have this other job we think you might be interested. Would you consider applying for that? And I did. And so I went there as a children's librarian and assistant manager, and at a branch. And then I think 6 months later, the original job I'd applied for, the person who had taken it decided it wasn't a good fit, and they left, and so the job opened up, and so then I ended up getting that job. So within a year, I was there in the job I had originally wanted, which was over teen programming. So for the whole system. So I think part of it is taking a risk, right? So I knew I was going there. I wasn't going for the exact job I wanted, but I took a risk and decided I knew that's where I wanted to be, so I would take a different position and take a chance that it would work out. And, you know, it did through hard work and a little luck, being a combination of the two. And so then I worked my way up through Houston just conscientiously. You know, I would always tell my executive director I would do whatever she wanted, whatever the purpose was. If she could give me, you know, a goal and a purpose, it didn't matter if it was scraping gum off the roof. If she sold me on the reason we were scraping gum off the roof, I would be there, and I would be like 100% committed to it. And that's sort of always been my philosophy. So I worked my way through at Houston, and coincidentally, the executive director was from Baltimore. And so every month she'd send me the Compass, which was the Enoch Pratt Free Library's program. And so I would look at it, and I would look at it, and I was always like, they're doing so many amazing things in Baltimore, and it must just be like the coolest library system ever, and it's like amazing. So I always thought about Enoch Pratt. Well, in the meantime, as I went through my career, I was thinking about moving into an executive director position because I realized that I liked developing people. I liked leading people. I was, goal setting was something that I'm good at when I have that sense of purpose and sense of passion. And so I was talking to the executive director and the deputy director, and I decided to apply for my own directorship position. And it wasn't in Ohio, actually. It was in a one-branch system in somewhere else in another state. And the recruiters said, well, you've got a lot of big library system experience. Why don't you apply for this place in Ohio? And I was like, yeah, sure, why not? So then the next thing I know, I'm moving my husband and my kids to Ohio, and I'm lucky to have a husband who's like, sure, we'll move to Ohio. So who spent his entire life in Houston, so that was a little bit of a...
Change, yeah.
Right, so, but again, that seems just unintentional, but it was really intentional because I purposely chose a life partner who would be willing to do that because I knew that that was something we would have to do if I was going to move around. And then, of course, I was in Ohio setting goals, strategic planning, buildings. And then, of course, Carla Hayden became Librarian of Congress. And that opened up the CEO position at Enoch Pratt Free Library. And I looked at my husband and I was like, oh, that'd be so cool. And he said, well, if you don't do it, I'm just going to spend like the next 10 years listening to you talk about how you could have done it. So why don't you just apply? And I said, oh, they'll never hire me. But, you know, so I went through the process. So it's a little bit of everything, right? You take risks, you take chances, you think about where you might want to be, and you understand that the road is going to turn a lot in order for you to get there. And sometimes you turn a corner and you no longer see what your original endpoint was, and that's okay. Like, you just have to let faith at that point guide you, and keep going towards that purpose that you originally set for yourself.
So why that, oh, they'll never hire me? Is that just that kind of self-doubt?
I think it's that woman thing in a way, right? I mean, I think it is. It's that sort of imposter syndrome, which we tend to suffer from more than others. I think that idea of like, well, why would they hire me? I'm just this kid from,
Michigan.
Right, a kid from this working class family in Michigan. Like, how would I get there? And then you feel like, what if a whole room full of people knows that that's who you are? And then you realize that it's okay if they do, right? Like, it doesn't matter. But I think we all grow up with that sort of idea of like, I can't really be who I am, and we're held back by a lot of fear. But you know what? You should just get past that fear and be who you are, because that's what's going to get you to that purpose.
Yeah.
And you use it. You use who you are every day. You bring your authentic self, and people respond to it. The moments where I feel like I've failed the most are the moments when I've tried to be different than I actually am.
That's true. That is real. Yes, let's give a hand clap for that. I know. It's interesting. Katie Couric was talking about that when she first started in the business. She was just mentioning about her personality and being quirky, and it never really fit into news. And they were like, "Who are you? What are you doing? You can't be smiling at a murder scene, that kind of a thing." And she genuinely was like, "But I don't know what to do." And then she would try to be straight and look like this and everything. And then finally, someone said to her, "Just be who you are."
Right.
People will either love it or not, but just be who you are. And so that genuineness and that realness of accepting who you are.
Right.
Is
and
so,
knowing it's okay. All those flaws, all of those scars, everything that you bring with you makes you who you are. And that's power. That's powerful. And it helps you get to that why and that purpose and those goals, right? So
it's all good.
Yeah, it is all good. And I think I'm not, like Madam Mayor said this morning, I don't wear three-piece suits most of the time because I always feel like I look like I dressed up in my mom's clothes that morning, or like somebody else. So it's like this is just who I am, and this is who you get, and hopefully.
Yes, this is who you got, and we love it. We're glad to have it. You also talk about leading from wherever you are, meaning you don't have to have a title. You can still be very impactful no matter what position you have within a company or organization. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So especially in a large organization like ours, we have 500 employees or close to 500 employees. You don't have to have the title of CEO. The people making huge differences every day in our organization might have the title of library assistant. They might be a circulation clerk, because those are the people that are really putting our why into play. So when that mom comes in and she's looking for a new career path, or she's trying to start her own business, or she has and she doesn't have to be a mom, I'm just using this as an example, or she needs to get something expunged from her record so that she can get a job, or she's just, trying to figure out what's next. It's not me she's coming in to talk to, right? It's this person at the circulation desk. It's the manager of that branch. It's the reference librarian. So if they're not there, if they're not clear about why we are all here every day, then they're not going to represent us well. But if they are, and they have that sense of passion, then they're leading the organization forward much more than sometimes than we are in offices. So wherever you are in your organization, you can make that impact. And it's either with the customer or with the other people you work with. So maybe you decide, we have an anti-racism and equity group that started in our organization that we love, and we're like trying to do this deep work. But it didn't start from me. It started from some employees forming together to talk about things in a real way together. And that is more powerful and a better example of leadership than if an administrator walks into a room and says, "Today we're going to talk about diversity," because that seems like not as authentic as someone saying, "Gosh, we really need to be having these conversations." They came to me and said, "We want to do this." And I said, "I want to do this. Let's do this together. I'm going to let you lead this charge because it seems more real for you to be leading this charge." And so they're leading from where they are, and their title doesn't matter. And we can all do that. So we can lead with our neighbors, with our children, with our church group, with our community center. We all have that power.
To be able to do that.
To be able to do that, right. It doesn't matter what your title is.
No, I want to make sure that people get that message, because I think sometimes people tend to think maybe I don't know, I'm too small in my position, or I really don't have the big title or make the big money, but that really doesn't have much to do with it. Listen,
no, there's no such thing as too small to be a leader.
And the person who greets you at that door of a library or at a business. I mean, those are your, quote, first responders. And they are the
Exactly.
ambassadors of that company. And they can
Right.
make all the difference in the world. And you think, I'm just greeting folks.
Right.
But it's really is a job.
It's
and it's an
completely a
important
job.
job that helps the organization. So that's important as well.
Right.
Now, 2 or 3 questions, and then we're going to open it up to the audience there. So with these goals, I'm always curious about people, how they respond to a setback with a goal.
Right.
Like things that you have put yourself out to, you've determined your why, and then all of a sudden it just doesn't happen. Or, the other thing is it doesn't happen in the time you want, right?
Right.
We're all
That's
on this
common
like
for me.
clock of it has to happen. I had a girlfriend of mine who's like, I got 30, I got to be married with 3
Right.
kids, and I'm
Right.
like, oh my gosh, what
Right,
is all
'cause
that
there's
about?
all these like rules in society, right? That
Yes.
you have got to do this by 30, and you got to do
Exactly.
this by 40, and
Right,
none
right.
of them are true.
Right.
So.
And if you don't do it, then you feel this sense of unaccomplished. You say, oh my
Right.
goodness, I didn't accomplish what I wanted to do by 30, 40.
Right.
Throw all of that out the window. But when it doesn't go, like you really put the effort in
Yeah.
and you tried to make it happen and you gave it your all, and then it's like, oh, I didn't get that job, or we're not going, or we have to stay here longer than I expected. How do you deal with that?
So this happens actually, frequently. And the first thing I do is I think it's okay to acknowledge that it's a setback, and it is okay to feel bad about it for a limited period of time. So I allow myself to be angry or disappointed or pouty. I don't inflict that upon, others or my staff. Maybe a couple of key people that are really trusted. So that's the other thing, is you need to surround yourself with like 3 key people who you completely trust. And I just picked the number 3 for me, but whatever your number is, that you completely and totally trust, that you can go in and say, oh, this is awful. And then have that real conversation, and you can be your worst self or your not best self with them. You don't have to be on and cheerleading it. Allow yourself that time. Go home, eat a pint of ice cream. I mean, that's what I do. And just whatever your medicine is. And then I really like to exercise, so I generally go for a really hard run or get on a bike and do a tough spin class just to get it all out.
Yeah.
And then the next morning I get up and I said, okay, you had your moment, you cried, you ate your ice cream, you ran, whatever you did, and now we're back to work. So you know that you had the setback. Allow yourself to feel bad or angry or sad, and then you pick up and you move on the next day, because there's nothing else you can do.
Yes.
There's
No.
no other
turning
way.
back. It happens. You
Right.
just gotta keep on
You
moving
have
forward.
setbacks. They
Yes.
happen.
They happen to all of us. I love asking librarians and people in the book world about some of the books that they enjoy reading, or
Yeah.
they can recommend, whether they're self-help books or books that have really changed your life, that would help folks in the audience in regards to setting goals, or any other
Yeah.
topics. Do you have some?
So I think for me, Why by Simon, I can't say his name right, Sinek, thank you, was a key, because it just resonated with what I've always felt, which is you can set goals, you can market something, but if it doesn't tie into your real true purpose, it's not
Yeah.
it's not meaningful, and it won't be successful. But when you tie into that passion and meaning, then that's where you really hit that sweet spot. And so that book really resonated with me. I also love Brene Brown, and right now I'm reading Dare to Lead. I just think she's awesome. And I like her also because I'm a very female leader, and I think there's lots of different ways you can be female, but I am very nurturing. I'm like, I guess when I say female, I have a little bit more of that sort of stereotypical qualities, and I think that that's awesome. I'm a little bit more, I come from a place of love. I'm always about, positives, and that doesn't mean I can't be firm and strong, but I think she really was one of the first people I read in a self-help book that allowed all of that emotion to come in, and I really appreciated that. And so she's one of my favorite leadership people as well.
Excellent. What's your favorite book, just out of curiosity?
So I can never answer that question. It's like, it truly
I know.
is like,
You'd be doing a
which of your
disservice.
children is your favorite?
Okay,
Tell
it's one
them
of
now.
those. That's true. That's true. That's
Like,
a great analogy.
I love them all. So I have books that have influenced me throughout my whole life, and
Yeah.
that's a pretty long and
List.
list and varied, from Ramona Quimby to The Color Purple, The House on Mango Street. So these are the books that I continually tell people, The Bluest Eye. So these are the books that I read that blew me away. And but the list is so long. There's a lot of them.
No.
But I think books that either help me see other people's world experiences or in some way reflect my own are always, I like fiction. I read a lot of fiction. So
okay.
I think that those are the books that are key for me in terms of my own personal development as well.
Excellent. I love books. Any final thoughts before we open it up to the ladies out here in the forum about takeaways, final things?
No, I think my final thoughts on goals are just think of them like the flag post you're trying to get to for your main purpose, and be willing to change those flags up as you go along if it's not working for you. I think the mayor said that, and I think that's really true.
Yep, make some mid-course corrections if it's not working. All right,
Right.
So we have some microphones that we can hand out to anyone in the audience. If you have a question for Heidi, please put your hand in the air. We'll see if we can get 4 or 5 questions in. Anybody have any questions for, oh, okay, there we go. She's got it.
Hi, Heidi.
Hi.
My question is about, because you have children,
Yeah.
what do you do to maintain balance? Because that's always, you're a CEO.
Right.
And you have children, and
Right.
you're giving off this air. I love those little kids.
I do.
So what do you do for the balance part?
Yeah. So I kind of think balance is a myth that we all carry around with us. I mean, I don't know. There's no balance. There's continual juggling and a lot of dropping of balls. So, and I think that I'm at a point where I just have to accept that. I mean, there's a lot of mom guilt too that comes along with being away from your house the majority of the day. And getting home and being like, oh, that's right, you had that diorama, and I didn't go buy the little figures that need to be in there. And thank goodness for Amazon. I can order them at 2 in the morning when I finally think of it. So, I mean, first of all, so I just kind of let go of the idea that there is a balance. And, I had someone say to me once, oh, you always look so pulled together when you come to work for a mom. And I'm like, listen. This is a yogurt stain. I'm hiding it beneath this brooch. Just don't, it's fake, kind of, I mean, and I'm pretty open about it, that I'm, always 10 seconds away from a family crisis or a work crisis. But I do try very intentionally to be at home with my kids when I'm at home. And when I have to answer work emails or take a phone call, which I have to do, I say, this is 10 more minutes that you're going to get later. You give it to me now, and I try to set some time boundaries and explain to them. My kids are 8 and 10, and incredibly cool about what I do for a living, and just the fact that we were just on vacation. I was on vacation with my son, so I also try to do little one-on-one mom times. My daughter went to Houston with my husband, and I went to Florida with my son, and I had to take a work call in Florida while we were in the middle of something, and he asked me about it afterwards, and we had a conversation, and so I think I'm just really open with them too about work and what it means, and I think they understand my sense of passion about it, which helps. I mean, I'm not doing something that is just a job. I'm always very clear to them that what I do for me is a passion and a calling and meaningful. So they feel that and they sense that, and I think my daughter also really senses it. I'm also very lucky that I have a husband who stays at home with our kids, so he's pulling more, yeah, it's pretty awesome. He's pulling more of the house weight, and we're I don't do a lot of laundry, and that's just something that our household knows, and I'm really lucky. I mean, really lucky, but in terms of the laundry situation. But that was something we talked about before we got married. Again, that this was something that we would be interested in. And Sheryl Sandberg said in Lean In, and there's a lot of issues with Lean In that we could talk about, but one of the things that did stick out and ring really true for me in that book was we need to see more dads in the carpool lane and more moms in the boardroom, and that's totally true.
Yeah, I agree with that. So what are your issues with Lean In? You have some? No.
Well, there's
Just
not
there has been talk.
equity and diversity, right? I think it's a great book, but there's a lot of white privilege, and I think Sheryl Sandberg herself recognizes that.
Okay.
So, I mean,
Okay.
I think that just needs to be talked about and called out for what it is. It's easy to say lean in, but if you're life circumstances are a lot different than Sheryl Sandberg's. It's not that
Right.
easy to
It's
lean
not-
in.
Yeah.
So.
It's kind of like, hi, can I come to the, no, I want to knock on the door. No, can I get in the door?
Right.
No, can I sit at the table? Okay.
Right.
Oh, now I can lean in? Oh,
Right.
okay. It's about 4 steps before. No,
Right.
just
It's-
kidding.
no,
but
that's
for some
right.
of us, our path is different. So I
Right.
completely understand. Okay, do we have any other questions right here? Yes, we'll get the microphone to you. Okay. Okay, yes. Okay.
Hi, I wanted to ask, I had an interview a year ago, and the person asked me, why are you just now interviewing for this type of position? So I explained to her I've been raising my children, and she said, that's not good enough.
Ooh. Yeah.
Okay.
I would like to know, so that's,
There's a lot of emotion around that in
I
this
know.
room right now. We're all angry
Yes.
for you.
Okay.
so that set me back. So now I'm back at attempting to relaunch my career. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering if that, and I know in the industry, I'm in healthcare. So outside of healthcare, I know women in their 50s are relaunching their career. They even have executive programs for women to get back in to regain their skills. So how, if I'm ever asked that question, or if they say, well, why have you stayed at your job so long, what would be a good response?
That's a great question.
It is.
I honestly feel like telling someone, well, I've been busy being, the CEO of my household, raising my children, is a perfectly good response. And right before I came in, and now I don't know who said it, so I hate saying things and saying this was a quote, but I don't know who said it. But I did just read a quote that said, everything I learned about everything I learned parenting is a leadership lesson. And and nothing I learned in leadership classes was a leadership lesson, or something like that. And I think you learn so much from parenting in terms of leadership and from your household. And I would really recommend that you talk about that. So if you've been out, if you've been at one job for a while, you can talk about, consistency and loyalty and the skills you learned there, and balancing that with the skills you learned as a parent and as someone running a household, because that's a real unpaid job, right? It is real work. And anytime we demean that as not real work, we're setting each other back. So if I were interviewing you and you said that, I would have said, oh, tell me more about what you've learned in that position, because it's a position. And I think you should own it. And if they said that to you, you can say to them, let me tell you what I've learned doing this, and how it and apply it. Tell them how it applies to what you're applying for. So if it's healthcare, you've learned a lot about healthcare from being a parent. I go to my pediatrician's office, and I'm like sitting there, and I'm like, I know what she's going to tell me. Like, my son was crying on the plane ride home, and I got off the plane and told my husband he's got swimmer's ear. Take him in tomorrow, and you're like, I'm going to put some rubbing alcohol, because that's what my mom taught me. It's like a home remedy. And I'm like, but tomorrow you're going to take him in, they'll tell you it's swimmer's ear, and they're going to give him some drops. And sure enough, it's exactly what it was. But so you learn how to diagnose, you learn how to observe symptoms, right? You learn how to be patient and to just hold a hand in comfort. Those are skills.
Those are
real
yes,
skills that are needed in
yes.
healthcare.
Great answer, great answer. Do we have any other questions? Yes,
Yeah.
we'll get the microphone to you.
Where?
Someone's coming around. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, we're getting it to you. Oh, okay. Whoever
Over
has
here.
the microphone and can ask, go ahead.
I was going to ask, how does a business or nonprofit organization begin a relationship with a nonprofit?
You just give me your card. Honestly, we are pretty open to partnering with just about everybody in the city and community. If we feel, is that mine or yours? Okay. So if we feel like we can, have some synergy around an issue together, or around a neighborhood or a service, then we will happily partner with you. But if you are interested, you specifically are interested, just make sure you give me your card afterwards, and I'll make sure that the person that we have in charge of the partnership area contacts you. She's great, and she's pretty new, but we're always happy to explore that. Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, next question.
Right here? Okay.
Good morning.
Yeah.
At what point did you develop your vision for Enoch Pratt, and how did you engage your staff and employees to get on board with that vision?
Well, so I think my first year here, I did a lot of interviews, and the first question people asked me was always, what is your vision for Enoch Pratt? And I always responded with, I don't know yet, because I have to learn about the city of Baltimore, because my vision for Enoch Pratt is based on what the city of Baltimore wants from Enoch Pratt. And so I developed my vision really by spending time in the neighborhoods that we're servicing. I live in the city of Baltimore. You know, I know that it takes a long time to become a true Baltimorean because you know, that's a lifetime process. But I love the city, and I want my vision to reflect what the city's vision for itself is and what neighborhoods view for themselves, because otherwise it's a meaningless vision. We are in the middle of our strategic planning process right now, so we'll have a longer term vision coming out. But I think in the interim, my vision was right away, we need to be this place of possibilities for, you know, for everyone in the city of Baltimore. And we instantly started saying, how do we remove barriers to access? How do we get more people to be comfortable coming in our doors? How do we let more people know about what services are possible, and how do we find out what services people want? So the first year I was here was really about exploring what Baltimore was for me and learning about it. And I think I got my staff on board with the vision by sharing my passion. First of all, I think if you work with me, the first thing you have to know is I'm incredibly passionate about cities, about libraries, and about the relationship between the two. So I think if you come to something with passion, it like rubs off, you know, and I'm just really persistent. So I'll show up in your office every day and be like, how about this? It's so great. Are we going to do it? When are we going to do it? How do you want to do it? But we, we pull together as a team. We sit at meetings. I slowly increased the amount of meetings my leadership team had. They were meeting once a month, and now we meet once a week because I wanted them communicating more. And we started doing retreats so that we could become like more of a team together, gelling. Whenever I lose focus of the vision, or if I have a bad day and I lose focus of what we're doing or why, I go and sit in a neighborhood branch library. Or now that my office is back at Central, I go sit somewhere in Central and I watch the people who are coming in and using our services. And that always reconnects me to the vision, because there's absolutely no reason for our library system to exist except to serve the city of Baltimore. So I encourage my staff to do the same thing, and I think they do. And I think they all get it. I think if you weren't at the table because you want to serve the city of Baltimore and because you believe the library has a role to play in that, then you shouldn't be at my leadership table. And I think we were really clear from that from the beginning, and I think everybody got that and is on board, and that's why they're there. I have a fantastic team. And now we're creating a longer-term vision together, and with our board and with the city and with residents. So we sent our consultants to like Lexington Market and to different neighborhood branches so that they could hear from people what they wanted. So we're creating a longer-term vision together.
Did they come back with some crab cakes from Fadley's when they were?
I mean, yeah.
I mean, that's all that really matters, right?
Right.
You're a Baltimorean now, you get it. Okay, listen, we're going to do one last question because we've got to get this lady over here, and we're going to move on. Thank you.
The last question for me has to do with how you share your creative energy and your innovative strategies with other library systems across the country. What are your informal and formal practices for meeting and spreading all of these wonderful things that you're doing at Enoch Pratt?
That's a great question. So we stay active in professional organizations. I'm thrilled to say that this last year, was it in 2018? Yeah, I think so too. We hosted the Urban Library Council. So Urban Library Council oversees all of the major urban library systems throughout the country in urban areas. It's one of my favorite library organizations because my work has primarily been in urban systems. It's where my interests lie. So they asked not long after I started if they could host their conference in Baltimore, and I was like, yes. And so we got to show off the city and the Pratt to all of our colleagues from across the country, which was great. So we stay active in those networks, and that helps to constantly exchange best practices and see what others are doing. We were the first in Maryland and the first on the East Coast to go fine-free, but other libraries had gone fine-free a few before us, and so we took all of their research and looked at it. It's a great way to share best practices. The American Library Association is our professional umbrella organization for all libraries, special, academic, public, et cetera, and so we stay heavily involved in that. We just went to Seattle and spent a day with Seattle Public Library learning about their race and equity programs so that we can start implementing some best practices in there as well. And informally, as a CEO, you get to know other CEOs. Either because, like in Maryland, we go out to lunch once a month and to exchange best practices. We have a group sharing session. We have a professional organization in Maryland, and then you kind of start to form these relationships. I still have relationships with directors from Ohio. I have relationships in Texas. So it's great to also off the record share our frustrations, some of our setbacks. We talk to each other a lot about how do you handle being city politics? How do you handle state politics? How do you handle, board relationships? And those are really important informal relationships to have as you grow your career in leadership, whatever your industry is, to have those informal relationships where you can sit down and be like, man, I am really struggling with this city council person. This is just a hypothetical. Our city council people are great. So, I'm really struggling. How have you handled that? And having that conversation. And I know you're not going to say anything because you're going to tell me about that experience you had with your councilman, and it's all, in the cone of professional silence. So it's really important to develop those relationships for your own sanity, but also because someday you might want a job somewhere and that person's going to, maybe be your letter of recommendation or whatever. So those relationships are really important to have and to maintain.
Wonderful. The cone of professional, what'd you say? The cone of professional?
Cone of professional silence.
I like that. That's my term.
What you share with.
Yes, that's
my
my term.
Permanent Vegas.
I like that. I like that. All right, we have Dr. Wanda Campbell. She is an organizational psychologist, executive coach, and principal at Cultivar Leadership Development LLC. Where's Wanda? Right here. Oh, yes, we were talking earlier. Wonderful. Is it Cultivar, Cultivare? Cultivara. Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. Have a seat up here, yes? If you can come on up, yes, Wanda. Thank you. We have Michelle Medeiros. She is the Director of Research for the Patients Program, University of Maryland School of Pharmacy. Michelle, if you can come on up to the stage. Hey, Michelle.
And our sponsor.
And our sponsor, yes. That gets an extra hand clap. We have Dr. Heather Harris. She is a professor of communications at Stevenson University. Heather, if you can please join us. Wonderful, thank you very much. Erica Sally, okay, she is a speaker, author, and transformational coach and founder of the Barrier Breakers Network at True Synergy, LLC. Don't sit down. Wait, come on, Erica. What you got on? That is fabulous. Do a little twirl. Can you twirl? Just twirl. Yes. Got that high-low. I know she got that high-low going on. All right. Don't do any matrix moves. Wait. Okay, we'll get there. All right. Last but not least, we have Bettina Straight. She is an organizational development. We have two other folks. Sorry, not last but not least, but Bettina is an organizational development consultant at Mercy Hospital. Okay. And joining us also will be Dr. Amina Patricia Vini, President and CEO, is it Vini or Veni? Vini Financial Group. She is a certified public accountant and a financial advisor. Thank you, ladies, very, very much. All right, we have assembled our panel du jour. Ladies, thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule for joining us. We really, really appreciate that. Okay, so I'll have the main mic, and then do you want to just give them once we throw out some questions? Okay, so we're talking about accountability, and I'd like to kind of just go through the line for this first one of what does that word mean to you in terms of the definition of accountability and what that word means specifically to you. And we can start with whoever has the first microphone, which is Erica.
First of all, I want to know if this was a setup, because she
So, good morning, ladies. I think when I think about accountability, what it means is, and I hate to use the word to define a word, but it's really the person or the act of holding yourself true to what you say you're going to do. And I think that involves a couple of different pieces, which I'm sure we'll get into, but it's absolutely needed in order for us to fulfill our goals. So it's really holding account, standing up to what you say you're going to do, and making sure you have the pieces in place to make sure that you own up to that. That's my definition.
Excellent. All right, you pass the microphone. Yep.
Hello, ladies. So, as a financial person, accountability means, to me, I'm the person that's holding you accountable. So I'm not going to tell you what to do. You're going to tell me what you'd like to do, and I'm going to hold you to it. So that's the way I look at accountability, just to be helping someone else be purposeful for their goals and what they want to do in their journey.
Okay. Michelle, you have a microphone. I'm going to go ahead and just jump on over to you.
Sounds good. So again, I'm part of the University of Maryland, and I'm part of a team that's an amazing team that's part of a research infrastructure. And so in my mind, in my professional role, accountability equates to transparency. So we have the responsibility to be transparent to the community, and part of what we do is inspire patients to be heard and brought to the table as a equal partner in the research process. So as part of that process, transparency, to be held accountable, we are to be transparent to the communities that are gracious enough to choose to work with us.
Hi, when I think of accountability, I think of it as ownership, and I also think of it as a process of learning.
I view accountability from the lens of a leader holding other folks accountable, and for me, it entails a responsibility to not only ensure that things are getting done, but to help the folks that you're working with understand how to be accountable. And you do that by making sure that everyone is clear on the goals. You do that by following up. You do that by helping them understand that running into an obstacle is not a failing, but is an opportunity to learn. And you do it by reinforcing them as they are accountable.
Good morning. I ran across something lately about accountability that I have not been able to get out of my mind, so I thought that's what I would share. The idea was, if you cannot be counted on to keep the promises that you keep to yourself, why should anyone else count on you?
That's good.
And it was a little mirror moment for me. And so accountability right now is key, because I am working on keeping the promises that I keep to myself, so that as I go out into the world, even more so than I already do, people know they can count on me as well.
That is great sage wisdom right there. But
It wasn't mine.
It wasn't yours. Okay, so you borrowed it from someone else. But we can all use it. I'll take it. But that begs the next question. So how do you make yourself accountable to a goal? I mean, I'm sure everybody has a different way in which they approach that, right? Do you write it down? Do you do a vision board? Do you speak with people who then hold you accountable? I mean, how does everyone go about keeping themselves accountable to that goal?
I got a coach, and I tell her what I'm going to do, and then she checks in with me to make sure I do it. For many of us, maybe, I know for me, I will try something, I will dabble, and it's very low risk. I want to try this direct sales thing, go for it, have fun, low risk. I want to say that I'm going to create a new something, low risk. No one's accountable but me. But what I started realizing is I would start things and not finish them. And so finding a coach who said, tell me what your goals are, when is your deadline? I'm not so good with deadlines. And following through and saying, yes, I got it done. And what I'm finding is that's creating a lot of momentum for me, because I'm no longer like trickling out. I'm no longer kind of letting things go.
Heather, you were grabbing the microphone about making yourself accountable.
When I think about accountability, I think about learning. I think about closing the gap for myself. I'm all about coaching as well. That is so helpful. Learning in terms of having your own assessment loop. So I see accountability as part power, part pleasure, part pain. We tend to focus very much on the pain. We make a mistake, we fall short, we don't meet the goal, we want to torment ourselves, throw ourselves on ashes and, sackcloth. And I think we need to be more compassionate with ourselves. We need to show ourselves more love, because if someone makes a mistake, we say to that person, that's okay, let's see how we can fix it. So when I think about achieving a goal as it relates to accountability, with the pain, we missed the mark, so how do we make that correction, right? What is the feedback that we've received from that consequence? But the same holds true for the pleasure of accountability. When you do achieve that goal, but when we achieve the goal, we just say, hip, hip, hooray, we get some cupcakes, get some wine, and it's all good with the world. But the assessment needs to happen there as well. Why were we successful at meeting that particular task, achieving that particular goal? And the power comes from the choice that we make, whether to be accountable or not. So all of that is part of the individual learning loop. And I take that from what Senge in the 1990s referred to as the learning organization. So I think about the learning individual. How do I close the loop from the feedback that I receive from the power, the pleasure, and the pain of accountability?
Nice, nice, very nice. Wanda, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, what I do to ensure that I actually deliver is, first off, I tie the goal to something that I'm passionate about. I'm looking at an outcome, an impact, something that is very important to me, and then I have the internal motivation. I don't have to kick myself. I'm trying to make the world a better place for some individuals. And all I've got to do is envision the people that I'm trying to help. And then that helps get the energy around doing what I need to do. It doesn't feel like a chore. It's more of a higher calling.
Do you have a recent example of that, perhaps?
Yeah, actually, one of the things that I'm working on now, well, let me back up. My target audience is STEM leaders, and I work to help them enhance their relationships. And so I am now, I've begun writing blogs so that I can share that information with the people who can't afford a coach or who don't work for an organization that does. And so I keep that in mind and think about where I used to be and what helped me, and that helps with the blogs.
Thank you. Anybody else have a comment on that one, and I'll move on to the next question.
So I think what Wanda said is very important, is tying it back to something, your why, and Heidi spoke about that earlier. I think once you define what that is, then holding yourself accountable means you're connecting it to more than just the word being accountable. You're connecting it to something that causes your heart to get excited, your spirit to be overjoyed. So that makes a big difference, is defining that why, because that's when you know that if I attach it to the why, then even if I don't feel like doing it, oh wait, let me think about the why. And then it causes me to propel myself forward even when I don't want to. And I think we can all identify with that.
Absolutely. Michelle, you were shaking your head. You can agree with that?
I do, and I think another component is I'm both a working person and a mother, and so I was laughing earlier when Ms. Daniel said that we balance things. It's not a balance, it's a juggling act. And I think that part of things, as at least from my own personal experiences, being a woman in the workforce, a lot of times we feel like we have to prove something more than other counterparts. And so when we have our goals and we are holding ourselves accountable, sometimes we think that we have to do it all ourselves. And yet, if you surround yourself with the right team members and you build off of the strengths that they bring to the table, then you can achieve your goal even better than you anticipated, because you surrounded yourself with the right members who support you, who share in the vision that you have, share your passion, and so take you to a place further than you even anticipated going. So, of course, the ultimate responsibility, accountability, is with yourself. But if you surround yourself with key partners, they can help you grow even farther.
Absolutely, I love that. Let's talk about accountability partners, right? How many people in the room have either been one or had an accountability partner? Okay, panel included. Okay, most hands are up. Excellent. So, for people who may not have experienced that, can we elaborate a little bit on how that works? If you've either been an accountability partner to someone else, can you give us an experience of how you help further someone along, or how they may have helped you? I'm sure for Erica it's probably an everyday thing, but
I'm itching to answer this one because I happen to be sitting next to mine.
Oh, well,
one
there
of
you
mine.
go.
The other one is in the audience.
There you go.
So here's what I say, and I say this to my clients all the time. When you are selecting an accountability partner, you absolutely cannot pick the person who is going to stroke your ego. You can't, because they're going to tell you what you want to hear, even if they should tell you something different. So having an accountability partner is not just let me just pick my best girlfriend. Now, these ladies just happen to be my best girlfriends, but they will also get in my face and say, okay, so why didn't you do that? But you said you were going to do it on this day. So an accountability partner is somebody who you can trust your goals with, but who you can also expect to call you out when you want to check yourself out. So that's like the biggest thing for me. So I'm sure you could probably jump in on that.
I love it.
Right. Yeah, I get on them about their money. But one of the things I would say about having an accountability partner, don't get someone that you can't be transparent with. We as women put on this mask, and if we have on the mask with the person that's our accountability partner, you're wasting your time, right? Ladies, take the mask off. Be transparent. There's very little that Erica doesn't know about me and vice versa. But we can also get down and dirty. We have this joke where we say something that the other one doesn't like. We say, "Shut up, Danny." And so we know that I've stepped on her toes, but she's okay with it. And so just don't get an accountability partner that you cannot be completely transparent with, and just take the mask off and be real. Because if you're not real, then you're just wasting your time.
Anyone else talk about accountability partners, whether you've been one or you've assisted with someone else?
I think it's really important I know that you can't have the same accountability partner for every area in your
Good
life.
point.
It can't be a cookie cutter. If I want to become more fit, I want my accountability partner to be a fit person who's going to challenge me. If I know my strength is I love to cook and I can cook healthy, so maybe the person who wants me as their accountability partner is quicker to go through the drive-thru than I am. And so making sure that the person that you're paired with, as you were saying, will challenge you, but also is someone who you can kind of look to, who's further along the path than you are, to help you, and vice versa.
It's funny because I am the queen of I don't mind being the person who checks in on you and say, okay, how are you? You said you were going to do this. But I never wanted an accountability partner because I was fearful that I might not do the things I needed to do. Like, I was extremely resistant. I was like, I don't need anybody checking on me but I didn't realize how much I needed that, right? We need that so much more than we realize. But what do you do if you are someone like me who's sort of resistant to that whole accountability process, a partner, just because I think I'm doing it the right way and I've got it figured out, but I probably could get a lot further along if I had a little help. Okay.
I think I may have the solution.
You'll be my partner? No.
Sure, absolutely. Actually, my accountability partner is someone who has very similar goals. I mean, I'm much better at doing something for someone else than I am something for me. And so my friend and I have similar goals, and we are, in addition to setting some interim goals, we're also sharing information with each other and resources. So it's like a partner going down this path, as well as holding each other accountable. And because we have similar backgrounds, when we don't achieve what we want to a certain week, then we're exploring what got in the way, as opposed to pounding someone down because of it.
Very good, because real life circumstances happen, yes. You have to acknowledge it.
I'm like you. I often feel going out to get some assistance from someone is going to turn me into I don't know what. But I have this fear. That's the pain part, right, of accountability.
Yes.
But we can't do it alone. And what it really boils down to is us wanting to maintain control. We want to control somebody else. Hey, did you meet that goal that you said you were going to do last week? But we don't want anyone telling us that, right? I love telling my students, hey, are you working on your paper? Did you see the librarian? It's like, I don't want anyone coming to say to me, hey, Heather, did you finish your syllabi? It's like, no. Right? But it's necessary. We have to relinquish that control because even accountability, with accountability, we cannot predict the outcome. It's okay not to be able to predict the outcome. We have the tools to figure out what to do depending on what happens at the other end, right? It's like a golf ball. You can have a great golf swing and hit that driver, boom, you're good until the wind catches the ball, then it's in the bush.
Right.
What do? You go into the bush.
Right.
You figure it out.
Right.
It's okay. We're not going to melt like the Wicked Witch of the West if we don't meet the goal, right? It's not like Six Sigma, we're not pilots, right? And even, we have to be allowed to see ourselves failing and seeing the value in failing, right? I remember a general, he was talking, I can't remember, McChrystal might be his name, and he was talking about President Obama. He said that the president did not allow him to fail forward. Right? He felt that he was under a lot of pressure. We have to allow ourselves to be able to fail. The failure is feedback. It's not inadequacy. It's simply feedback. What are you going to do with this information that you now have based on the actions that you took? That's it.
Right. Go ahead, Michelle.
I echo what you say, and I think this is part of the reason why I look for accountability partners or for mentors. I look for women. I look for women who are further along in their career path because they've done that falling forward. And they'll support me, and they'll be there for me, but they're not going to hold my hand, but they're also not going to fall backwards. So they know how to help me along the way, and it's scary because I like control. I like to be in control. I like things lined up. This is not a conference. I don't do unconference.
And yet you're here.
And I have team members in the audience. I want them to report back that when I sat down, I sat in the second seat, not the last seat, so I want credit for that. Very outside my comfort zone. So that's why I look for women who are further along the path, who have aligned passions, who can help me to move, to fall forward, because the control, you have to let go of that control. It's scary. The fear is there. The fear is real. You have to acknowledge that. I'm not saying advising to let go of everything, because that's obviously not what they're asking us to do. But to move forward, to take that next step, and that's the position I'm in now. I was in a very comfortable place. I got too comfortable, and I was told to get uncomfortable. And so that's part of what I'm here to do.
Who told you to get uncomfortable?
My boss.
Okay.
It was the passion inside first. I knew I was too comfortable. I had for a long time a special needs son, and it had to be about him for a long period of time.
Okay.
And that was an honor that I had as a mother, and I could do that over and over again. But it reached a point where he was in a good place, so I knew that I was too comfortable. I had done what I needed to do to help him. I still do. There's still a lot to be done, but I knew it was a good time for him. He was in a good place. I was able to move out of my comfort zone, and so then I jumped into the deep end with no swimmies. Because my boss was amazing, but he
That's wonderful. You know, I'm going to talk about failure and failing up and failing forward and all these terms that we use. But you brought up something that I think is very important for us to address for just one moment, and that has to do with complacency. I do want to, right? I want to talk a little bit about getting too comfortable in your own skin and how you get your, because that lends back to accountability, right? How do you do that? Like the job is good, everything's working out, the marriage is fine. It's like, it's all working. I don't really need to, push it because if it ain't broke, don't fix it, that kind of a thing. But sometimes you do need to be stepping out. You do need to be pushing yourself a little bit more. How do you do that when it's not really what I feel like doing, and do I really have to? But if you have goals, right, and you want to get somewhere, staying stagnant is not going to accomplish that. Anybody want to speak to that?
So one of the things I would say is success comes with risk. Risk comes with stepping out of your comfort zone. I am not a networking person. I hate networking. I am not the person that's going to come up to you and say, hi, my name is Trish, this is what I do. What's your name? That's just not me. But I know in order to propel myself forward, that's one of the things that I have to do. And so in my mind, when I come to a conference, before I get out of the car, Trish, you're going to meet 4 new people today. And I'm holding myself accountable for that. And so I'm met 2. I've got 2 more to go. Hopefully I'll surpass that goal. But you just have to take risk in order to be successful, in order to go that next level. And that they don't have to be huge risks. That's not a huge risk. To me, 4 people is not huge, but it's huge to me because it's not my comfort zone. So just step outside of it and set a goal for yourself. Hold yourself accountable for just whatever that is.
One of the things that I think is important, when we think about complacency, a lot of times it might be attached to fear because the comfort zone is safe. The comfort zone is what we're used to, and I'm going to raise my hand because I'm in a situation like that myself on a personal level. But the reality of it is when we kind of let go of the fear of, oh my goodness, what if I do something different than what I'm doing right now? Then possibility is what starts to show up. So I think a lot of times we just get comfortable because it's just like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's on the other side. Even if it might be something good, just the realization that it's new and it's different can sometimes be just enough to stifle us into, okay, let me just stay put because it's safe. But on the other side of fear can be some amazing things. So I think that's one thing. If we move past that, then regardless of whether the situation is great or it's not so great, saying, oh, well, let me see what's new and take fear out of it.
Yep. One last comment about the complacency, getting out of a rut and all that other good stuff.
Yeah, we're in March now, and when the year started, it was all about the New Year resolution. And I remember, this was maybe 30 years ago now, I decided I was not going to make a New Year's resolution about, becoming a size 1 or -1. That I just wanted to be a better Heather. And so how do you do that? You do a self-assessment, right? You release the fear for the fabulousness that is possible. You know that there's also the fall that's possible, but again, everything is about the learning that comes from it. So doing a self-assessment. What did I do well last year? What do I want to build upon? What do I need to let go of? What maybe can stay as it is in a holding pattern for a while because I really don't know what to do with that. You're not going to have all of the answers all of the time. And that's okay too, like, control freak to control freak. When I don't have the answers, I lose my mind, right? I behave like Rumpelstiltskin when the princess found out his name. You gotta just be okay with it, and that in itself is a process.
Yeah, no, that acknowledgement. Did you have one last comment before we move on?
Yeah, and that is if you're having challenges with this, start with smaller goals.
Okay.
That aren't as scary. Okay. And I don't know about you, I love learning. Mm-hmm. So if I'm moving into or interested in a new area, then I learn all about it to start to feel safe. Yeah. And it's knowing what makes you feel safe.
Right.
And how can you work it so that you can get there?
Yeah, great advice, ladies. So I want to read a quote to you that you all have probably heard before, and it'll segue into our next conversation about failing, because that's a part of trying to accomplish your goals and accountability. But ever tried, ever failed, no matter, try again, fail better. That's from poet Samuel Beckett. I'm sure you all have heard that before, playwright. It's a timeless quote. So I want to talk a little bit about failing. What happens when you fail, when you don't reach those goals? And sometimes you can fail small, you can fail miserably. We've all seen it could be a public failure, right, which is just, god-awful sometimes. And we talk a lot about failing up, failing forward. And I think people have different definitions of that. Can we talk? Let's address the one about what happens when you fail and you don't reach your goals and your accountability is not met when you talk to your partner. How do you work around that? How do you get back on track? Anybody?
So I'll give you a real world example. So several years ago when I launched my business, I had come up with what I thought was a creative name. I'm driving home one day. I had just picked up the invitations from my launch, which was scheduled. I'm driving down the road. I get this phone call. And the phone call was like, hey, you might be on the verge of trademark infringement. And I was like, okay. So start freaking out all the way home. And what I realized, and I literally broke down in the car. So what I realized was that, oh my gosh, all this work that I had done, my launch event is, just around the corner. Just picked up the invitations with the wrong name printed. And I think the Quran is in the audience. She printed the invitation. I don't see her, but I know she sees it. There she is. So I'm freaking out because I felt like I did not do my due diligence. I thought I did, but somewhere along the way I missed the ball. So I get home, I, explain to my husband everything that's happening, and I broke down. And he allowed me to do that. Like literally broke down sobbing, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? I've got people. And then I realized, okay, so now I'm gonna give myself this opportunity. I think Heidi said it earlier. I'm gonna give myself this opportunity to have failed something. I missed a step. I can make two choices. Either I can wallow in the failure, or I can say, okay, now what do I need to do to move on? And then what will I learn from the lesson that caused me to fail? So for every woman in the room, there's always going to be something where you fall short. And we have to know it is absolutely okay to know that those times will come. You don't have all the I's dotted, all the T's crossed. You'll cry, you'll snot, you'll roll around in the floor, do whatever else you need to do. Allow yourself to do that. But don't stay there. Just say, okay, this is what happened. This is what went wrong. Now, what can I do to learn from it, and how can I move on so that I keep moving as opposed to staying stuck in unsuccess? So that's my thought.
One of my favorite books about just that is called Leadership Passages, and it is about executives who have failed and how instrumental that was in turning their life around. And I had that same experience. I thought I wanted to be a VP of HR. And I applied. I didn't get it. To make matters worse, the person who did get it was about as dumb as a post. The only thing lower than her intelligence was her integrity. Woo, yeah. So I took that one pretty hard. I'm thinking, what? So anyway, I had the opportunity to work with her for a while, and I learned all kinds of political skills that I didn't have before. And ultimately, I left to become an executive coach. And I've realized that if I'd gotten that job, I would have been miserable, okay? So sometimes failure is actually a gift. And that enabled me to then go out and coach people so I can coach smart people who aren't stupid and have integrity. And we can turn it around.
I love it. That is a great story. That's a great hand clap. Come on, y'all. I love it. Failure is a gift. That's a good one. That is a good one. Any last comments on failure? Because I am going to talk one last thing. Anything else?
Just really quickly, again, I'm borrowing this. I'm in the midst of devouring everything I can personal development-wise, and so I'm reading Rachel Hollis, Girl Wash Your Face. Yesterday she came out with Girl Stop Apologizing. One of the things that she talks about, and she may have borrowed it too, has to do with if you're going through something that is feeling like the world is on, is out to get you, ask yourself not why is this happening to me, but why is it happening for me? And it has resonated so much because if you are not prepared, or if you haven't learned the lesson, or if you haven't developed the skill in that moment, when the next bigger thing happens, it could be a bigger failure. And so to go through it and think, this is not easy, I am not loving this is not what I expected for myself, but if I get through it, can I look back and say, okay, why did that happen for me? And what she talks about is the fact that the sooner you can get to that perspective, the shorter that distance of pain, or that shorter the pain point becomes. That's faster you can change it around, the sooner you're ready for the next thing, and I just love that.
Oh, that is wonderful. Thank you for sharing that with us. We appreciate that. Rachel Hollis is the name of the author. Leslie Odom, the Tony Award-winning actor who played Aaron Burr in the hit musical Hamilton. Anybody get a chance to see that? Oh, that was fabulous. Alexander Hamilton. If you haven't, catch it. It'll change your life. But he has a book, and Colette was mentioning this to me, and I went and researched it. But he has a book called Failing Up: How to Take Risks, How to Aim Higher and Never Stop Learning. In the book, he says, and this is a quote, "Spectacular failure is the secret ingredient to your ultimate success." Spectacular, that's a strong word, everybody. He goes on to say, and while no one can predict exactly where your ingenuity, perseverance, and your willingness to fail spectacularly will lead you, the smart money is on up. Right? It's a great, great, great quote. In fact, I think I want to get this book now. So what does it mean to sort of fail up? I mean, I feel like there's two different definitions. Some people think you fail up, meaning you do miserable and then you still get promoted. And other people think, I don't know if people, confusing the definition. And then other people say, failing up is taking those risks and having the failures and learning from them, and, something better comes on the back end. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think failing up is learning, right? For me, it always goes back to learning. You see, I'm the only one here putting my hand up because I'm in the classroom every single day. And I can't get out of it. I think it's about learning. My failing up moment was when I got divorced over 10 years ago. That's a very public failing, right? Who wants to go through all that money and drama with the dress than to get divorced 5 years later? And the lawyers are expensive. But as a result of going through that, and as a result of getting a coach to help me see myself differently, as a result of giving myself self-love and self-respect, I was able to fail up in terms of, well, as a friend said to me, how did you contribute to that? And I was like, you. Right? And then after I said that, I said, well, yeah, how did I contribute to the divorce? Well, I knew before I got married that he was a work in progress, as am I, but he needed more progress than I needed. But I thought love could heal it, right? And another friend of mine said, Heather, your problem is you sleep with Cinderella. That's your problem. You believe in fairy tales. So now I no longer believe in fairy tales, but what I do believe in is good loving comes as a result of self-respect. So it's not love you want, it's respect you want, the love will grow. So when I tell my students, I say, look, I'm saving you 40 years, people. I'm saving you 40 years. Do not pick up ragamuffins.
Okay, preach. That's right. I learned from experience.
Don't pick them up. And there was a song I heard. I can't remember No, that's my favorite. But no, that's not it. No. that's not it. It was by I can't remember his name, but he said, do not be a nickel looking for a dime. Too many people are scrubs themselves, looking for people who are not. Okay. Right? If you want someone who drives a Mercedes, whatever class it is, I don't know because I can't afford it, but whatever class it is, you better have a Mercedes yourself. Don't wait to be driven, drive. Right?
Don't wait to be driven.
I'm not sure how to follow that. Thank you. So I can come from my personal experience. So as I mentioned earlier, I have a son with special needs, and he's a complicated kiddo, and I don't have any background in any of his challenges. So I felt often that I was failing.
It's okay. It's okay.
Just talk to me.
Okay, yeah, right.
Much easier.
There's no one else in the room. It's okay. Take a moment. It's all good. It's all good. This is what this is all about. Yes. You're in a room full of people who support you, who understand your journey, and if they don't, they still love you nonetheless.
Thank you. So often I felt like I was failing. I didn't know what I needed to do for him or I could help him. So I found the experts. And then I found the school system. And the school system wasn't interested in actually doing what he needed. He is in the 25th largest school district in the county, in the country. So it's a large school district. They have lots of resources. They don't actually have the interest in helping their students. So I took him to court. I took him to court. First time we settled before we went in, and because there's a school that services all of his needs and gives him what he needs and gives him a chance at a future that he otherwise wouldn't have. So the first time we settled, and I figured out afterwards, I found out who was standing in my way. So I removed her. Not only did I remove her, I went after the superintendent of the school district. My lawyer subpoenaed him, and lo and behold, before we went into court the second time, we never even stepped foot in the courtroom because the county lawyer said, "Come on over here, I have a deal for you." So they offered placement in the school where my son is and has been and is doing fabulously. And there's still days that I feel like I fail him. The failures are smaller. I'm in a much better place. He's in a much better place. But I tell you what, I have learned a lot from that experience. I have come out, and he has come out from that process. We're much stronger. So it was a dark place at times, but we are in a better place. There's still lots of work to be done, but I have the team that actually cares about him now and actually supports him now. So yeah, the tears are real, but you can move on, you can learn from it, and keep moving.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Thank you. I appreciate that. We all have it, right? We're all vulnerable. We all have things that we're going through, so it's nice to be able to share. Now, we're kind of coming towards the back end of our panel discussion, but there is a question that someone put in the box that I will put out to the panel. This is about money. All right, dinero, moolah. So people want to know, and this is a great question because we hear it all the time, and there are different ways to approach it and what to do about it, but we have an esteemed panel here, so you guys will have an answer. How do you negotiate your salary? Women often do not negotiate salary. We're just happy we got the job and take what's offered. So how do we go about doing that? If any of you would like to chime in.
There's a finance woman at the end.
Yeah. As many of you would like to speak would be fine.
You have not because you ask not.
Okay.
Simple as that. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, if we don't ask, we don't get it.
Yeah.
And as far as negotiating, start at the top so you can give yourself some wiggle room. That's my suggestion. But the worst thing you can do is not negotiate it. Mm-hmm. So make sure that you do that. And that comes with what? Taking risk. And that is definitely taking us out of our comfort zone. But go into the situation knowing that that's what you're going to do. Be prepared for it. And I bet you'll feel better when you finish.
Yes. So what happens if you're not successful? Like, you know, it's the high range is 55. You're like, hey, 55 is it. I'm over there. And then they say, well, actually, it's 33 to 55, and we were thinking more like 38. And you know you're the 55 or 52 person because you want to be reasonable. I mean, how do you navigate that?
Well, in reality, most jobs already have a cap. They know.
Yeah.
They know how high they can go.
Correct.
So generally, if they tell you this is all we can do, you've got two choices, right?
Right.
You either take it and look for another job.
Take it and look for another job, okay.
Or you recognize that this isn't a fit for me and you move on.
Okay.
Because that goes back to complacency, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I tell my daughter all the time, don't settle. I just believe that. Don't settle there. If you're worth that 55, go out and get it.
Right. Right.
Simple. Go out and get it. And that might sound easier said than done.
Sure, sure.
But you've got to keep pressing forward. It's called perseverance until you get what you want.
Mm-hmm.
That's just my mentality on it.
Michelle?
I agree with that, and I think another component of that is to know your self-worth, so you know what you're worth, because if you come into that situation with the confidence that I'm worth that 55, and they get that vibe from you right off the bat, not arrogance, but just confidence, that you are coming in and I'm going to ask for that 55, or whatever it is you think, if you set that tone, I mean, at least for me as a hiring manager, if I know someone who's coming in, it's happened to me recently, she had done her homework, she knew what was out there, and she said, this is what I'm worth, and she brought her skills to the table, and we had a choice on our end to look at that and say, well, is it worth it? Do we agree? And in this case, we happen to. But because she had come forward, and that's when I went with my last position, and it was state-to-state job, and we do a lateral move, they typically don't give a raise. But I knew my responsibilities were changing, and they were changing drastically. And if it was a right fit, I asked for a raise, and it worked out because I knew that my role was changing. I knew what I was bringing to the table. I was clear about that. I was clear about where we were heading, and happily, I got the job, and things are going quite well. So, but knowing your self-worth, having that confidence after you know you should ask, coming in with that confidence really, I think, is a key part.
Yep.
I'd also say talk to the men in your life. What are they getting paid? Right? Don't just get paid like a man, get paid like a white man.
Okay. All right. I don't even know where to go, Heather. Yeah, that's a mic dropper right there. Woo-wee. All right, ladies, I mean, gee, I don't know where we go from there. I might have to wrap up on that one. I am just curious. This was something that was part of the goal setting, but I do want to bring it out because it's something that I've lived by, and Colette and I have talked about these vision boards, which I wanted to get 2 seconds in about vision boards. How many of you have done a vision board, know what a vision board is? Great. We've got wonderful hands in the air. Ladies on the panel as well, because that can be something with accountability, right? Helping you reach your goals. Can you just share with us, how that's worked for you, what's happened in the past, and how you go about doing that? It's very individual, but...
Yeah. And I'm glad you said that. So I look at things from 4 perspectives, and this is kind of how my vision board is set up. It's health, it's finances, relationships, and spirituality. And so I kind of break my vision board into those 4 sections. And I go through and I pick out pictures and I write themes and words that align with those 4 key areas. And I keep it in a place where I can see it. I do a lot of work in my office and home, so the vision board, my desk is here, vision board is right here to my right. So I can look at it and just get this picture in my mind of the things that I desire for my life in all of those areas. I think sometimes we create a vision board and it's like shoved in the drawer or we don't see it again, but the purpose of the vision board is to keep the vision present. There is a scripture that says, write the vision and make it plain. So if you don't write it or you don't put it up so you can see it, it doesn't exist. So I think vision boards are fun. It allows you to be creative. It allows you to dream and really say, what do I want my life to look like? And here's the thing, and I'll pass the mic. your vision board will probably initially look like something that you can't even conceive of. It's going to look like what your current lifestyle or existence is not. And that's okay, because that's the thing that says, this is a dream, this is my vision. But just because it looks like, okay, I put a Mercedes on my vision board and I know my pocket says a Toyota, nothing's wrong with either, I'm just saying, then I'm just not going to dream it. But the reality is the vision board is to say, hey, here is the vision, and let me figure out what I need to do to bring it present. But you got to have it in front of you in order to get that pressed into your mind, and then that leads to action behind it.
Can you quickly repeat those 4 categories or the 3 categories?
Sure, 4. So health, finances, relationships, and spirituality. And really, when you think about it, everything we do in life falls into one or of those categories.
Anyone else? Vision board? We'll do one more thought on that, if so. Anyone else? Okay. I'll share a quick vision board. I put one together many, many years ago, and this is when I was looking for a husband, right? So, I mean, you know, my husband jokes all the time. He said that I was burning up the prayer line asking God for a man. So he said, I heard you, take one for the team, please. I got more important things to do than to worry about this child being married, because I didn't get married till late in life. But I put, you know, images of what he would look like, but I was more specific about the qualities, and because it wasn't, you know, I wanted someone to look good and fine, but there were certain qualities and characteristics that I was looking for as well, so I was very specific and wrote those down. I even cut out pictures of what I thought my ring would look like. And I wasn't that girly kind of person, but I was just like, oh, you know, it should, you know, look like that. Put a picture of a home, and I put a few other things mixed up in there. Oh, yeah, an Emmy, which, God, thank you for those. So I was putting all these things that I wanted, desires in my life, but I was writing them down, and I was looking at it. I would put it in different rooms of the house. Long story short, the things that I put on that board, they manifested themselves to reality. They came to fruition. But here's the funny thing about it. It was over several years' time. I didn't even realize it. But when I was married, with the ring that looked very similar to the one I had clipped out, to the new home I was moving with my now husband, and my Emmy that I had my name on was going with me, it wasn't until I was packing up that vision board that I looked at it. And I said, I'll be dang. Shut the front door. I said, God is good now. He is good all the time. I didn't even realize that those images that I had been looking at, that had been, you know, like a tickle in the back of my brain and constantly asking the universe for, had finally manifested. And it was many, many years later. So I'll tell you, I've been real lax on my vision board. I've got to get back because hey, that was wonderful. I got to get back into it. And I recommend, if you haven't done one before, try it. You know, try different phrases, break them up to categories, because it really can be exciting. So my husband's like, thank the Lord. That's
can I add one more thing to that?
Sure.
The key to the vision board, though, is not just to cut the pictures and put it up so you can see it so it looks nice.
Yes.
But then you have to put the action behind it. Because sometimes we create it and we look at it, oh, it looks nice. You see how my board turned out? And then you don't put the action in place to get you to where that vision, or where you want that vision to take you. So that's the key. Don't just create it and look, but then you have to be strategic about how am I going to get to it in incremental steps, because it won't all happen at once. So.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to open it up to questions because we're wrapping up so we can get to lunch and all that other good stuff. Anybody have a question or so for our panelists, our lovely panelists who've been so wonderful to share so openly with us this morning? Okay, yes? I think I probably can get this to you quicker. Hold on. See, I changed my shoes. Y'all didn't even catch that. Hold on.
I loved hearing about the importance of our passion as a driver. My challenge is I have many passions and I'm struggling to find the focus. How might you guide?
Great question. Thank you very much. Yes. How do you guide that? All over the place. Do you start writing it down? Do you start breaking it up into categories? Do you start putting deadlines on it? I mean, what do you do about that?
I would affectionately call myself a dabbler for a while. And so when I remind myself, and you've heard this, and I don't know why I'm just using everyone else's words, but you can't give 100% to 100 different things. And I started talking to people and hearing the things that they said, like, wow, you really light up when you do this. your voice changes when you talk about this. And 2019 for me is a year of focus, because I can do a little of this and a little of that, and none of them were really bringing about what I had hoped for. And for me, it was focusing in and paying attention to what other people were also observing, and recognizing that for whatever reason, diversity work, connecting people, helping people have really difficult conversations that they just cannot imagine approaching. See, one of my friends is looking at me like this right now. That was it. And so that's where I had to start putting my energy. So it was not only, I can love and have a bunch of different hobbies, but it was that thing where other people were like, Bettina, you're on fire when you're talking about this. You are focused on it right now. And that's what has really helped me, is because I'm squirrel, shiny thing, that completely me. But it really did help to get serious about it, to help to just hear what other people also saw.
Wonderful. We have one other question. Okay, in the back. If you can yell, we'll see if we can get the microphone to you. Sorry about that.
All of you seem very confident and in various fields. How did you all get to this level of confidence to speak with such authority about what it is that you do and what it is that you're interested in?
Great question. Great question. Thank you.
So that is a really good question. When I first started speaking, I was petrified. And what I did was I went through all of the anxiety, and most people, if you hear people say all the time, I can't get in front of people, I can't do this, I can't do that. And that's what I said initially, but no matter what I felt, I still forced myself to do it. And so it took years for me going out and being in front of a crowd of people. And then one day I went out and I was like, wow, oh, I'm not scared anymore. And now, don't get me wrong, this isn't easy necessarily, but it's not a scenario where I'm petrified to get in front of people. So what I would say is, force yourself, if it's something like that that you want to do, force yourself to do it and take away the fear. And after a while, that fear will just dissipate. I promise you, it will just go away, and then you will be confident. But the other thing that brings the confidence is knowing your subject, right? I'm not going to come and speak about what Erica's focus in her, that's just not it's not my lane. And so on my desk, I have a sticky that says, stay in your lane. It's okay not to know, right? And so part of that comes with just being comfortable with what you're speaking about and forcing yourself to do it and taking that fear out no matter what. Because fear will stop you and limit so many things, is what I found in my journey. Just shake the fear off and do it anyway.
One quick thing that I would add to that too is really accepting the fact that there is a power on the inside of you, of each of us, that says you can do whatever you put your mind to. So I always like to use mantras and affirmations to just reaffirm who I believe the Creator already made me to be. And I think once we start to embrace that and do it every day, if that means you have to look in the mirror at yourself, if it means you got to walk around your house and talk to a crowd of people that are not in the room, just go. Those are some of the things that help us to get comfortable with the fact that we are already created as amazing beings. And along with that, it's like every time it affirms who we are, it gives us that confidence. And so you just take little incremental steps and knowing that you can do it if you choose.
One last comment. Yep.
Just to add on to what Erica is saying, I remember just after I got divorced, a friend of mine at a conference said to me, Heather, sex is not a theory, it's a practice. So I say that to say that confidence is not a theory, it's a practice. I practice daily to be confident, right? It's just
Well, this isn't going to be that good, but most of us are way too hard on ourselves. And, you know, it's a matter of who our I'm sorry. Oh.
Yep.
Okay, most of us are way too hard on ourselves, and we tend to underestimate how difficult it has been for other people to get wherever they've been. Okay, so that's the first thing. And some of them aren't as far along as you think. Okay. Okay. So one of the things I do with my clients is I have them talk to me about things that were really hard for them and things that they accomplished. And it's not always about the degree, but about where you started off and where you ended up. And I have my clients keep a running list of their accomplishments. And when you start to feel down, go back and take a look at that list. And when you accomplish something, put it on the list. And that sometimes helps remind you that you've got a great deal of ability. And you've done it over and over again, and you'll continue to do it.
Wonderful. Ladies, thank you very much. We've got Tricia, Erica, Heather, Wanda. We've got Michelle and Bettina, right? Aren't these ladies amazing? Thank you very much for your information. We really, really appreciate it. It has been a talking with you about the accountability panel. Thank you very much. And I'm sure you guys are going to be hanging around for a little bit more of the conference, so if you have any questions, you can speak with them. But thank you for sharing. We really appreciate that. Did you guys enjoy them? They were wonderful, right?